All right, we have been talking about upcoming virtual Q&A sessions with potential employers, and here to talk about how to make sure you're as prepared as you can be is Job Fest Kern's Josh Connor. Josh, good morning.
Good morning.
What is the one big thing that people overlook when they go into these live virtual Q&As?
I would say there's actually two things.
Okay.
One is not asking questions, and then two is whether or not you should be on camera. If possible, if it's a Zoom meeting or something, if you should be on camera while you're watching these Q&A sessions.
Really? What would be the advantage to being on camera versus having it shut off?
To me, depending on the size, if there's thousands of people there, this might not be, relevant. But if there's 50 people there and you're one of 20 people on camera and you're asking a lot of questions, if that employer can pull you aside, then they may. But if not, you might be remembered in the future like, oh, that was that one person, was dressed nicely, was asking all these questions. Anything that we can do to stand out in this pool of candidates, we have to do it. So being on camera, dressed professionally, ready to come to work right then. Can you be at my office in an hour? Absolutely, I can be there, and you're already ready to go.
You think part of that, as far as like you just mentioned, sort of like the dress for success kind of a thing, just comes from the fact that we've been stuck in this virtual world for so long that people are like, well, I got pajama bottoms on and some fuzzy slippers.
Yeah, it's crazy because, I'm usually in a suit every day. I haven't wore a suit. I think I wore a suit 3 days in a year. You know what I mean? So I'm not used to not doing that. But again, it helps yourself too. When you see yourself on camera, you're going to look at yourself and say, wow, I look good. So you're going to feel good, and you're going to portray that energy to that employer. So we have to make sure that we dress right.
And the other thing that you kind of touched on there was asking questions. And I wanted to ask you about that. How often do people go into these types of sessions with nothing to say?
I've personally done it before. And
Really?
then right when that session ends, I'm like, oh, I had this question, so this is your time again to ask about the hiring process. So when it's been a week and you haven't heard from that employer, that it takes about 2 weeks, to get this application ran through the system. Or what's a typical day like? Find out what you're going to do, what you're going to be doing, because then that's going to open up the door again to what you could say, well, that's awesome because in my previous job, I did do these things. Treat these like an interview, like a group interview. You want to be the one that stands out in these, so you have to ask the questions especially when Job Fest gives you the opportunity, like we are tomorrow, ask questions.
Yeah, before we touch on that, I just need to say, what is the question that you typically tell people don't ask that question out of the gate?
The one that I don't care for is when do I start if it's an interview, but for something like this is how much is the pay? Do I have weekends off? Am I off Christmas? Those are things that we don't ask yet. Let's wait till we get to the negotiation part of the job offer, and then you can start asking those kind of questions.
And quickly, the hot event of the week?
Tomorrow at 2 p.m. at facebook.com/JobFestKern. I'm going to bring on an Amazon representative to talk about, 2 new facilities that are going to be coming. So they're going to need to fill these positions, and that Amazon is hiring right now. A lot of people say, I went on the website, there's no jobs. There's a certain time and a certain day that you should be kind of active on their site. So we're going to explain all that tomorrow at 2 o'clock at facebook.com/JobFestKern.
Perfect. Josh Connors, appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thanks.